Thinking about implementing AI for your business? Then timing is crucial. In this episode, you'll learn how to assess when your business is ready for AI, how to get going quickly, and avoid those costly mistakes we've seen other businesses make, and honestly, we've made when implementing AI. So welcome to the AI Accelerator for Business show, where you get the latest strategies, tactics, and information to get the benefits of artificial intelligence for your business. My name is Carl Ye. I'm the Chief AI Officer with 0to60.ai. I'm joined by my co-host and co-founder, Jeff Bradshaw. So today we're talking about how and when your business should start AI.
Carl, I think this is a critical discussion to have. And I think knowing the right time as to when to start to look to integrate AI into your business is important. And the reason is that I think it's from a time-saving standpoint, a resource standpoint, and even from a competitive standpoint is making sure you're not falling behind your competitors. And that's why I think this is an important topic.
So today we have several steps, I think 9 of them, on how to actually get going. And I think the first part of this is addressing some of the challenges of why companies have a tough time adopting AI as a company. We've met enough businesses that there are people in the organization who are using AI, but it isn't a company-wide program. There isn't a company-wide strategy. It's just pockets of people and teams just using a ChatGPT or a Runway or a Midjourney to do whatever the tasks are. So we have an episode where we talked about the challenges of AI adoption in the workplace, and we're going to leave that up here and in the description below. But I wanted to start with when you talked about when should a company start using AI.
I think, and that's an important topic because I think it's out there, people are hearing about it, but I think the time is now. And I mean, maybe we're a little bit biased because we're in the space, but I mean, AI is not going away. It's going to impact your business in the near future. It's something that is going to help improve efficiency. And I think that companies need to look sooner than later. And I think that they can't be intimidated by it. I think that, part of and going again to our other episode that we have, just, some of those key challenges and concerns are they don't necessarily have the time. They don't have the budget for it. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the expertise. But I think all of those things can be solved with some of the stuff we're going to talk about in this episode.
So I think the first step here is evaluating your business readiness for AI, right? And I think part of that to me is understanding who's using it, but also is your company ready? Because even though you say, Jeff, you got to start today, there's so many ways you can start, but actually preparing your company for it, right? Like prepping your data to make sure your data's clean. And I kind of want to jump around here too a bit, because one of the steps is a little bit further down where we talk about change management. But when we talk about preparing your company for AI, is there actually appetite from your organization to go through the changes that will have to happen when you start adopting some of these AI tools and processes?
And I think that's a key thing. I mean, that adoption, we know that in every company, and a lot of people put an age factor on. They're like, oh, well, our older employees. I don't think it's an age factor. I think that some people are open to change and others hate change. And so I think you need to identify those people that are open to change, get them on board. And those that might be a little bit hesitant of change, I think you need to explain to them why you're making these changes and the benefit of the business. And I think also while talking about AI and not putting the fear, a lot of messaging out there is that AI is going to come and replace somebody's job. And I think it will replace some jobs, but that's not the goal of companies. I think it's a matter of you want to keep your team in. So absolutely, that change management is critical. And I think just to kind of jump to point number 2 here, Carl, even is that start small and focused with test pilots. And we talk to clients all the time about you don't have to come in and totally overhaul your business and, plan to use AI in every factor in the next 3 to 6 months. I think it's start small, test it, make sure it's something you're comfortable with, make sure you're getting that return on investment, and then get into the game. And we talk to clients about that a lot of the time is you got to at least get into the game so you understand the technology.
When you talk about starting small, I think also it's even before that, you got to list a whole bunch of workflows and processes, because we always talk about the 10 to 40%. Reliably today, AI, the tools that we have, the tools that that any business can access, can reliably improve productivity and efficiency by 10 to 40%. That can scale, right? There are really cool tools that can do really cool stuff, but that's like one offs, and those aren't really scalable, and we're not sure about the reliability of those. So, one of the things is when we talk, we go in and we do a business assessment, right? We have a list of questions to for businesses to see where they are, but also, hey, list your processes, workflows, and then when we talk about start small, pick one, two of those things, and see how AI can help with that 10 to 40%. Everything else, keep doing what you're doing for your business. But, once you know those two, hey, then it's an opportunity to add another, maybe scale that across the organization, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the key, is starting small, focused. I think part of that starting small and staying focused also comes to the point number 3, which is understanding the data requirements, because it's not like there's a good chance that your organization won't have your data structured properly. It won't be clean data. And by getting into AI and understanding where you can use it, it might be a point where you can start to clean some of that data up so that you're ready down the road for what's to come.
Yeah, and when we talk about cleaning your data, you got to look at duplicates. You got to look at um, anything that, how long have you had this data, where it's stored, integrations. I think that's a big piece, and this is where probably chatting with your IT teams, because we've seen too many. Like, I think every single business has either local drives, Google drives, Microsoft OneDrives, SharePoint, wherever your data is. It's probably, you've got employees probably just dumping whatever there. You forget about the naming convention too. It's named final version 2 3 final. That's probably, we've seen that before. So how can you get the latest or whatever to work with these? And I think you can't really do all of that and then AI and then wait. That's probably going to take you too long. But I think it's good to think about how you're going to, what data you're actually going to use, that the AI tool is going to help you do that productivity and efficiency, which actually connects to, oh,
And I was just going to say, just on top of that, though, I think a lot of organizations don't realize that they can actually use AI to help
yes,
them clean up their data.
that's
So
correct.
it's not a laborious task of going through line by line and having somebody do it. You can use AI to help to clean this data up and to create some consistency with file formats and naming, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no, for sure. So going on to step 4 here is choosing the right AI tools and partners. And I think this is where companies have to decide, can we do some things in house? Could we look at companies' third party solutions? Could we have consultants like what our company does? And what are you trying to actually accomplish too? Because I think some companies we've seen, and even just for myself, we can go out and test a whole bunch of tools and it's exciting and so on. But at the end of the day, you still have to connect to your business goals. This is still, hey, a connection to, hey, what are these tools going to help the business for? So you can't just test a whole bunch of AI tools because it's fun and it's cool, but how can it actually help? And I think that's where you have to assess, like, even from a tool level, do you build it yourself? Do you use a third party solution? Do you get consultants come in and help you do that assessment? And it gets into, I don't think it even mentions here, privacy aspect. What part of your data is private with, client information, or what data that you have is already public?
And I think that's where, again, it's um, choosing the right partners is critical, because we've seen this where, the latest app is released and everybody thinks that they should be using it. And all of a sudden it's gone or replaced by
Mm,
another app 2 months down the road. So we're aware of that too. And we're very upfront with clients with saying, dip your foot in the water, but don't make a full commitment. We've seen that a lot. We've talked about this in other podcasts where people have made a massive commitment for something like Microsoft Copilot, spent the money, and then went, nobody's using it and we don't know what to do with it.
yeah.
You might be better off to get a few licenses and get a few people testing it and figure out how to use it before you make a big commitment.
So number 5 is employee and stakeholder engagement. And I think that still connects back to the change management piece, because for your AI program to work, um, your your team has to buy in. We've seen top down approaches, fine, but just like what you talked about, Jeff, in terms of Copilot, just because the top down, the CEOs, the C suites, or the leadership says, hey, you know what? Now we're doing AI because we turned on Microsoft Copilot. Well, it's like, well, AI, you haven't actually looked at what the problems your teams and your employees are facing. That, hey, maybe a Copilot doesn't actually help them fix that problem. You can't, try to implement Copilot for every single problem because it just doesn't do that. And I think we're in a space where there's so many tools and you may be missing out on a better solution rather than a very broad tool mostly focused on your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and some additional elements to it like Copilot Studio or Power Automate, but starts getting more complicated where another tool which is AI native versus AI bolted on might be a better solution.
Well, and it's interesting because you and I were talking about this earlier this morning. I think that's where a lot of people will come in and they will say, we're going to use this for, we're going to create a virtual salesperson and it's going to engage with customers and have this. And it's such a lofty goal that I think and then they forget about the basics of what AI can do to help improve the efficiency on a day-to-day basis. And so I think those are the things that just companies need to be aware of, which really also aligns, goes in with respect to the next point here, which is assessing the internal appetite and the leadership alignment, because too often we see executives that aren't necessarily on board. They turn it over to their IT department, want them to handle it because they're too busy. And I think that's where there's a missing part here with AI, is that if you don't have that alignment across the executive and the leadership and where you're going with it and where you can find that 10 to 40% efficiency, then it's really difficult to have it pushed down throughout the organization. It's also difficult if you've got one or two champions within the company and they're trying to push it up. I think that everybody needs to kind of get onto the same page. And again, this is all about how companies, how and when they should start to look at integrating AI. There's got to be that alignment.
I think this is where an internal AI committee, steering group, whatever it is, of making sure you have a leader in it, say for example a C-suite champion, plus your advocates who then kind of set some of the guidelines, the policies, but also there's like a guiding force for the entire organization rather than have one or two champions try to push through, and it's very difficult to move up the chain and the ladder, because the business has to still operate independently. What, even though AI could help, still has to move. So how are you going to get that? And this is where like an internal AI council, plus that's when you start from a change management perspective too. That's when you start maybe having like an internal AI academy where you start talking about how do you educate everyone, because not everyone will be using or have the knowledge of AI that some of your champions and advocates have.
So just on that, on the change management, we've mentioned it a few times here, Carl, but I mean, any thoughts on different ways that companies can manage that process? How do you like what I would just maybe turn over to you to share some of the experiences we've had.
I think like when we talk about how companies can change, the big thing that we've seen is there's an excitement when there's AI adoption, let's say Microsoft Copilot, but human behavior as it is, how can you sustain that? Because you're going to be paying for some of these things, custom built, third party, whatever. So even if, let's say, it's increasing efficiency, productivity by 20%, well, as an employee who's very used to consistency wise doing my job in a certain way, and you're introducing this new way that I have to do, well, I equate it to, hey, I know how to use Excel. Do I know how to use every single feature? No. Can I probably be 20% more efficient in Excel? Probably. But I can't remember how to use all the features. And I'd rather, because I'm comfortable, I just rather do it the way that I've been doing it, knowing that I could be 20% more efficient, but I'm just more comfortable doing it this way. And I can reliably, consistently do that task over and over and over again that way. So how do we go about one of the questions is, how do we go about ensuring that from a management perspective, you have sustainability of the AI process or tools or pilots that you're going? And I think some of the techniques and ways to do that is you have those regular check-ins. You really show the value. You have your champions. You have those internal academies. You have regular education. You have to showcase the value to your entire organization. I think this is where your AI committee comes into play, because they actually can promote some of the wins, some of the tools on a regular basis, plus the training that keeps people using it rather than, hey, it's a one and done, which we've seen a lot of whenever a new tool comes out. That's what usually happens, especially if it's run by IT.
Well, but and I was just going to say that. I mean, I think that's the problem too. Is I think from a change management process, you almost have to take the technical aspect out of AI, because I compare it. My analogy is that if I meet with a mechanic and he gets so excited about a 6-cylinder V8, so many 400 horsepower, you know, I just blind over and I'm like, I do not care the mechanics of this vehicle. But if you tell me that I can get from here to downtown in 30 minutes rather than 3 hours of walking, I'm like sold. So I think that's the challenge too, is we sometimes companies get too technical with it. And I think we have to take that out and talk about the benefits. Where is it going to save people time? Where is it going to save them money? Where is it going to make their job easier? Where is it going to make them more efficient, and focus on those aspects? And I think that way there's, what we've seen is you can get better engagement and people start to use these tools on a regular basis. I think the other thing too, is we've seen is that you can't just have it as somebody's going to use it every 3 months. You have to figure out a way that people can start to use it on a daily basis, because we've seen it is that once people start to use it and they see the benefits, it's a no-brainer. They'll just give me more. And I think that's where the real upside for AI is, in that longer term engagement with companies.
There is a human psychology to it too, because you have to change a habit that person has been doing over and over again. But I think the one way to do it, and this is where we always lead with, hey, what is the boring and mundane, the things that your employees hate doing, like reporting, like accounts payable, like expense reporting, whatever those things are, that every single week, every single month, biweekly, annually, every quarter, whatever, it's you get the eye roll and you're like, God, I have to do this again, and have to pull the data. So it's like, can we get AI to do 10 to 40, at least 10 to 40% of it? Because that will make an employee much more likely to use it if they don't have to do the things that they don't want to do, right? So it's, if I don't have to do this because it takes me 2 hours a month, I can save myself 2 hours. That's amazing. I would rather have it do that. Now stack 2 hours, add another 2 tasks, that's 6 hours a month. So that means you're saving 18 hours a quarter.
Yeah, but also having that top-down alignment too, so that somebody doesn't go, well, I don't want to save 6 hours a month because I'm going to work myself out of a job. Yeah. That's where you want that top-down alignment, so that the executive is saying, you're not risking your job. You're not working yourself out of a job. We want you to spend that 12 hours a month that you've saved from doing those mundane, repetitive tasks. We want you to take those 12 hours and develop new processes, service clients better, build a better product, do better, find ways to make us even more efficient. And I think, that's where you need to kind of get that message out so people aren't intimidated by AI.
Well, speaking of, and that's the next piece here, is understanding AI's impact on workflow and the structure, right? So like I think I said at the very beginning, companies have to list out all the things that are boring, are mundane, and that have potential that AI could alleviate at least 10 to 40%, right? So every single role, it is a fundamental change though, a fundamental change in thinking, at least a little bit, where you have to think about, okay, in this team, in this person's role, this is the list of things that they do that's repetitive, that they have to do every quarter, every week. Well, where is AI potentially could help with that? And I think that's where your AI council could help. But that's a really fun exercise anyway. Even if you don't implement AI, you can start seeing where there is inefficiencies in your team. And this is where like an in-depth interview, which we do with different teams when we engage with clients, is we talk to them, we list out their processes, and you can start seeing some inefficiencies. And funny enough, we've had clients where like, you didn't need AI to do the inefficiency. You could have fixed the inefficiency right there, but no one actually said it out loud in an environment. And you always had that example, Jeff, where you just walked over to the other group and you fixed an inefficiency that was there.
They just need to talk to each other.
Yeah.
No, totally. And then the last point we have here is really building that feedback and improvement loop again, so that, this isn't, people can't expect AI to be integrated into their organization and it immediately fixes everything. You want that feedback loop so that it's that constant improvement. And as the technology develops and as people start to use it, you get your whole team's buy-in and providing feedback and going, if we do it this way versus this way, I'm getting a better result. And I think that's important for that constant improvement. And I think that it's not a one and done. It's going to be something over the next couple of years that people need to start to integrate. But again, going right off the top of the show, the time to start is now. It's not something to look at and say, well, we'll do this in 2025 or 2026, and putting it off till Q4 of next year. I think companies need to look now, again, from a competitive standpoint and just from an efficiency standpoint.
So the question for you today is, what areas of your business are more likely to benefit from AI? Are there any clear, repetitive, boring tasks that you could do? And the one thing that maybe, to take away from this episode is identify that one small process workflow, make sure your data in that workflow is solid, and look at ways on how AI, and find an AI tool and see if you can actually implement a 10 to 40% increase in productivity or efficiency.
Learn more about implementing AI for business by watching these videos here. Enjoy today's episode and want to learn how AI can impact your business? Then please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next episode.